20 X-Men characters, almost $10,000, and I swore to myself I wasn't going to do it. Here I am, 20 different characters, more coming, and about $10,000 just for some cool X-Men crap. As the Extreme channel is pushing towards 50,000 subscribers, these are just a few of the statues we are giving away on the journey there. If you want to know how to win one, stay tuned for later in the video. Hey, welcome to the Extreme channel. If you're new here, a big part of this channel is all about Extreme collectibles. And there is a big story behind these 1/10 scale Iron Studio X-Men vs. Sentinel statues. As I said in the intro, there's a number of different parts to these, and I have 3 videos focusing primarily on these Sentinels. You can check those out. We're going to talk a little bit about those today, but if you want more information, you can click on those when we talk about each one. So as a quick recap, Iron Studios teased this massive diorama quite a while ago. When I first saw it, I said that's amazing, but I'm not getting it, because I have a huge collection of X-Men vs. Sentinel statues. For example, this Cyclops right here, but as you can see, they're much bigger scale. Then I remember seeing Gem Mint do his Sideshow video during COVID, and he showed these pieces together at Sideshow, and I was like, damn, I am sold. So I went ahead and ordered number 1 directly from Iron Studios. And Iron Studios, as they've done with many of my orders, actually canceled it 3 different times because apparently they don't like money. Shortly after, I ordered number 3 from Sideshow Collectibles, a distributor for Iron Studios. I was going to pass on number 2, the one in the middle here, although I do enjoy a good number 2. But it just didn't speak to me. Then I totally forgot I had Sideshows on order. And they released number 1, and everybody and their mom got it. Most people loved it, some did not. And some of the videos I saw showed that the paint and sculpt are very mediocre. I forgot that I had number 3 on order from Sideshow. So a few months later, they actually shipped it without even telling me, and it landed on the table. So I thought I might as well do a review for you guys. So I opened it up in this review. And despite the mediocre paint and sculpt, I was really impressed with this piece. Well, less than a week later, I had a friend message me saying that number 2 was actually available for discount. It was 15% off due to a damaged box. No damage to the pieces, so I went ahead and ordered that one. Well, then I wanted number 1 because number 1 is actually the one I wanted the most because I love a good number 1. And a week later, I was able to land that from Todd Father at Spec Fiction, despite the fact it was long sold out. So here we have all of them today, and since I've already done a review on each and every single one, I thought this would be a little bit different. I'm going to look at the proximity pieces I've ordered, and we're going to do mini reviews on those. We're going to talk about the proximity pieces that I have on order, talk about the ones I'm passing on and why I'm passing. And then at the end, I'm actually going to give you a summary, now that I have all of them together, what I think of each one individually, where it shines, where it's better than the other ones. But in short, I gotta let you guys know that this is amazing together. And I can definitely see why so many people love it. I'm tempted just to keep it on the middle of this little conference room table, but that kind of renders it obsolete. So with that, let's dive in. All right, so first I wanna look at the proximity pieces that I've purchased separately, and then we're gonna kind of dive into the ones that I have on order or I didn't want to order. But starting with Jean Grey here, I think she's one of the best ones in my opinion. While I'm not a huge fan of her portrait, and I'm not gonna go into detail about paint and sculpt and things of that nature, I love what they did with her telekinetic effect down here. I think it looks awesome. This clear translucent resin gives her a little bit of the flying effect. She has part of the X-Mansion destroyed down there. And you know, it's hard to make her in a very action dynamic pose, but you definitely don't want these guys too static or too museum pose because of what's going on in the entire Sentinel. So I really like her. I think she's a fantastic addition, especially when you think that we have Scott right over there. Then Nightcrawler's kind of an interesting cat. So they have him on the base of a destroyed Sentinel piece. Could be a finger, part of a hand, whatever that looks like. They have the BAMF effect. I would have liked to see this a little bit more translucent. Now with him, they have an extra BAMF effect. So this is kind of to insinuate that's where he teleported from. So you put that in a separate area. So I think that was a cool addition. And again, portrait's okay on him. I've definitely seen better, but I like the action dynamic pose. You know, one of his powers besides the teleportation is just his acrobatic ability, very similar to Beast. So I like that they show that he's leaping through the air, a little bit of rage. Would have been cool if he had a weapon. You know, he's known for his swords, so I think that could have been better. And again, I'm not really focusing on the paint and sculpt on these, but definitely a cool addition to the collection. Now the other three that I have right now are all Brotherhood, so they're all your villains. But first you have Sabertooth. I'm not a fan of the portrait on Sabertooth at all. I think it's a huge miss. But I got him because I'm a big fan of Sabertooth in general, especially the classic costume. That's what I love about all these. You know, I recently watched the intro to the 90s cartoon, and all of these are pretty damn close when it comes to the uniforms. So you have Beast. Again, he's inside the mansion. You can tell by the floorboards, and he has a hand from a Sentinel. Now, the only bad part about all these Sentinel parts is, realistically, this is assumably, or making you assume there are more Sentinels out there that they've already destroyed. Now, with him, you have it where it was cut off, so who knows who cut this off, whether it was Psylocke with her blade, or Cyclops, and the paint's pretty mediocre there. That looks pretty crappy in my opinion, but that's on the side. And again, I like Sabertooth's pose. Again, gives you that action dynamic feeling in the middle of a battle. Now, Sabertooth is a big character, but look at him next to Blob. He's tiny in comparison. So we're going to look at the front of Blob in a second, but first I love the fact that he's using part of the school to actually be involved in the fight. And one thing we're going to talk about is when I reviewed number 2, I kind of realized that, hey, they're not all fighting the Sentinel together. It kind of looks like the Brotherhood or the bad guys are actually using this time to attack the X-Men as well. So that's kind of how I've set this up right here, and I plan to in my display. But so they're approaching the X-Men on a team right here, the Brotherhood. But Blob looks great. He's coming from the outside. I think they did a great job. And this is a display option with Blob, by the way. You can have just a normal hand, I believe, but I put it right back in the box. I think the portrait is fantastic. This is one of their better pieces. He does cost quite a bit more because of the size. Now, if you want to check any of these out, there are affiliate links in the description below for both Iron Studios and Sideshow. You can check out the Iron Studios 1/10 scale pieces. A lot of them are already sold out, as we're going to look at. I like the skin color on him, you know, that jello type effect. Really good job with the shading as well. Then you have Pyro, and I think Pyro is a knockout of the park on every level. I love his outfit. I love his portrait. Again, in the middle of a battle, and this is how I like my fire. I don't like painted fire, so I think translucent resin for fire looks great, and he just really adds to this. A ton of detail even in his pack here. In my opinion, one of the best pieces. The base is pretty boring, but he just looks great. So now let's check out some of the other pieces I have on order and the ones I didn't order, and then we'll come back and talk about the Sentinels here. So first thing to cover are the proximity pieces that I'm not buying. So these are available for sale. There's actually links in the description below, affiliate links that help the channel. So first is Mojo, which is a quintessential X-Men villain. However, I don't really see him fighting Sentinels or being on a team with the Brotherhood or with the X-Men. So for those reasons I passed, and you're going to see that as a common theme of the ones I'm passing on. So next is Spiral, and I'm not as familiar with Spiral. I do remember her in a few comics, but that's the biggest reason that I'm passing on her, is just such a lesser known character. And for the same reasons I passed on Mojo, you're going to see that pretty much on every one I pass. It just doesn't go with the entire setup, but it's a cool piece for sure. Now Magic I know very well. What I don't like about this is I don't picture her with the classic 90s cartoon X-Men like most of the pieces that I have currently set up with it. So for those reasons I passed, I do have a Phoenix Force version of her, which I absolutely love. So here we have Logan. Now the reason I'm passing on him is I already have a Wolverine in the diorama, so it just wouldn't make sense to have two of him there. And you're going to see that with the next piece as well, but this is still a pretty badass piece. If you're collecting 1/10 scale, I personally would get this. So next one here is a spin-off on Wolverine. It is Albert and Elsie, a very lesser known storyline in the X-Men comics. And again, for me, just wouldn't make sense fighting with the Sentinels, everything that's going on. But very, very cool proximity piece, and if you know this story, I would definitely pick this up. Then we're going to move to Forge. Now, I wasn't a big fan of Forge, and I hate the portrait on this one. So for me, it was a pretty easy pass, although I could see him actually fitting in with this diorama. And the same exact thing is with their Cable right here. So again, I like Cable a lot. I like the character a lot more than Forge, actually, and I think this would go really well, especially with time traveling. Maybe he came back to help them. But I think the portrait is horrible on this. So for that reasons, it's an easy pass for me. Now this next one, just in my opinion, doesn't fit in. While Deadpool does have ties to the X-Men, the base doesn't fit in at all. And really, I don't need this kind of piece. It would be funny kind of having him in the diorama, though, just kind of messing around while everybody else is fighting for their life. But the Deadpool 1/10 scale was a pass. Emma Frost was also a pass for me because she's kind of boring. Again, a quintessential part of the Brotherhood here, but easy pass for me, although she would fit in really well with the diorama. It would be cool to see her facing off against Jean Grey. Now this next one, Silver Samurai. Yahoo, my voice just cracked. Silver Samurai, I passed on him because it wouldn't make sense having him fight in the diorama, in my opinion. You know, I don't really see him as a team member. I understand that, you know, the Sentinels are destroying all mutants, so maybe he'd team up, but it just didn't work for me. Mystique I passed on. This was one of the, I think the second one that ever came out. I passed on her because she was pretty boring, honestly. And I think the sculpt on the portrait's not that good. As you've seen in the reviews, they're really hit or miss. And while she's a quintessential character, it's still an easy pass. Now the last one that I'm passing on, I already owned, and that's the Professor X. This one I would love to have back, but it goes for so much over retail. I should have held on to it and sold it for higher than retail. But this would be a really cool piece to add to the diorama, but I'm passing because I know I can't find it for a decent price. We're jumping into the maybe. So these are pieces that I might get. So first is Bishop. Again, he kind of fits in like Cable and Forge did, and I think they did a really nice job on him. The one exception for him is I'm not really a huge fan of his pose, even though it does fit with the diorama, so he's a big maybe for me. Omega Red. I really love the character of Omega Red. The reason he's a maybe for me is simply for the fact I don't think he would be participating in this. I honestly don't. I think it's a character they made just to make the character. It doesn't flow well with the dioramas. I don't know who he would team up with. Of course, I could face him off against this next character. If I faced him off against Colossus, Colossus is a maybe simply for the fact he is sold out and hard to find. I'm on a wait list. So kind of in my head, if my waitlist converts with Colossus, I will probably pick up that Omega Red and have them fight off against each other. The next Quicksilver, as you guys know, has partial ties with the X-Men. Sometimes he's on the team. This one's a little boring in my opinion. That's the reason that I'm passing. But it's hard to show a running power. We've seen that with other statues like the Flash, which, you know, is Quicksilver's counterpart there in DC. But if I got the Quicksilver, I would definitely get the Scarlet Witch. I think they did an amazing job on this. But again, Scarlet Witch to me isn't a quintessential character of the traditional X-Men team, despite the fact she has worked with them and been affiliated with the team, and even on the team, I believe. Now, this next piece is a maybe because it hasn't been released yet. It was only released in Brazil, I believe. This is Sauron. I would get this, even though it doesn't make sense in the diorama, simply because it looks absolutely amazing. So this is a maybe simply for will they release it in the US? Now, these next pieces are pieces I do have on order. I got X-23. I think she's going to look amazing. She is in the X-Force suit, which doesn't flow incredibly well with the statue, but it is what it is, so I will definitely take that. Probably one of the most expensive ones is the Apocalypse Deluxe. I did order this, and again, just like Omega Red, it really wouldn't work with the diorama, but it was such a cool-looking piece, and I don't have a standalone Apocalypse anymore, so that's the reason I bought that. Then our last piece is Havoc. Of course, I have to get the brother of Cyclops, and I think the action dynamic pose of him will look amazing in the diorama. So what I want to do is I want to talk about how this is supposed to display as a diorama and the pros and cons to each particular piece. And I'll start with number one. So the last piece I got, the first piece they released. Now, I think there's two really large pros to this piece. Number one is it has some of the quintessential characters. You have Wolverine, Rogue, Beast, Cyclops. So it's almost needed. You can't have a X-Men without Wolverine and Cyclops especially. So I was really impressed with that. I like a lot of the Easter eggs in the actual mansion in the base. But I love how they're destroying the Sentinel. The fact that Wolverine ripped through the middle and he's flying in the middle of the air, I think that is extremely impressive. One of the most dynamic pieces out there. You know, I didn't receive these till 2022, but I could definitely see them winning some of my favorite awards. And I still stand by the fact I think the paint and sculpt is very mediocre on a lot of these. Like if you recall, Look at Rogue's face. That's horrible in my opinion. But I love how she destroyed the Sentinel. And not only that, but she really appears that she's flying. So I love this piece for those reasons. And Beast is the exact same way, man. He's holding on with just his hand, ripping apart the Sentinel to shreds. So I think the two big pros to this one are the fact that it has those quintessential characters, and then just the action dynamic aspect of this. Man, I don't know if I've seen a more dynamic statue, so I really appreciate that. Now, for negatives for this one, I'd have to say the paint and sculpt just are horrible. I mean, I talked about in the review, you have the gobstopper type shit in the middle here from Willy Wonka. Remember, that's what the everlasting gobstoppers look like. The base down here, this doesn't even look like wood in my opinion. So I think that was a huge miss, but I'm kind of overlooking that for everything else that's going on. The one in the middle, the big disadvantage to me is it only came with 3 characters. While it did have a nicer price point, so I appreciate that. And at first I was like, yeah, it's only half a Sentinel, it's not going to look good, but it really does. Now, the big pro I loved about this one, it kind of changed my opinion on the diorama. I mentioned this talking about the proximity pieces. I thought that all of the mutants were actually fighting the Sentinels, but that's not the case on this one. So I am convinced you have Gambit, who is attacking Juggernaut, and Juggernaut heading towards Gambit. And Magneto is controlling the down Sentinel. So it's almost like the Brotherhood, so Magneto and Juggernaut and Pyro and Blob and Sabertooth are using this opportunity with the Sentinels breaking into the X-Mansion to attack the X-Men. So it adds a whole nother storyline and layer to this, especially when you add in those proximity pieces. I mean, I think you can really tell a few different types of stories, and to me, this just takes this to the next level. So I think those are kind of the things about this one that are really impressive, honestly. Now, number 3, other than, Storm and Iceman, Psylocke is a big X-Men character, but a little lesser known. Kitty Pryde, a very well-established X-Men character. Same with Archangel, but not as popularized. So the characters aren't a must, but they have some of that action dynamic aspect we talked about in number 1, except the Sentinel isn't as damaged. So, for example, Kitty Pryde is going through here. And I made a comment on what damage is she doing just going through the inside. And someone pointed out it's kind of an ignorant comment. She could just rip apart the internal circuitry. So that's kind of cool. You have Archangel flying. I think Storm looks amazing with the lightning bolt going through the Sentinel. That is pretty badass. And then you have Psylocke on the back here, who is slicing down the Sentinel as she goes. And of course, Bobby Drake, Iceman, freezing the entire leg of the Sentinel. So I think that's a big pro to this one as well. However, owning number 3 as a standalone would be a little bit off to me, simply for the fact that it doesn't have those quintessential characters. I also wish there was more battle damage on this one. You have the lightning bolt, a small blade from Psylocke, and of course the frozen foot. But if you go back to number 1, it is ripped to hell. So they're doing the team on number 1 is doing a hell of a much better job than the team on number 3. So I do have to say, as an overall, to kind of sum this up, individually they're very cool. I could see owning just number 1. I couldn't see owning just number 2. I couldn't see owning just number 3. As a whole, these are amazing, and I'm eating my words. I'm very happy I have them all, despite the hefty price tag to get these. But I think it's very, very impressive on many levels. So the next step is, will they do Galactus and Fantastic Four in 1/10 scale? If they do, I am all in on day 1. And there could be so many proximity pieces with that, because there's so many people that have helped the Fantastic Four fight Galactus. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. A little bit different video, but man, these are so impressive. I'm definitely going to leave it on the conference room table for a while. Let me know in the comments which one you like the best, because you could win a statue based off that comment. We will be giving all of these statues away, plus additional ones at every 5,000 subscriber milestone. To win one of these statues, all you have to do is make sure you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, you've hit that bell notification, and then just drop a comment below. Every 5,000 subscriber milestone, we are going to do a random drawing and pick a random comment and give one of these statues away, plus some additional ones I'm not showing right now. The more videos you comment on, the higher your chances are to win. Again, really appreciate you guys tuning in. Please hit that subscribe button. A lot more cool stuff coming. In the meantime, drop me a like on the way out. It really helps the channel, and I'll talk to you soon. Check out these other videos. Take care.